Hey, how's it going? I am honored to be alongside GiantsNinersDubsSharks. Still weird saying that in my head because for the last 5, 6 years it's been A's Raiders Dubs Sharks. But for reasons that are completely understandable, he's made the switch, and we are back for our fourth straight year of playoff prediction videos. And I'm so psyched that we can continue this trend, keep it going every year without having a flame be burned out, if you know what I mean. So I'm just happy to be back. It's that time of year again. It's one of the best times of the year in my opinion because it's so fun to make these videos. It's so fun to talk about football playoffs coming up. And this has been a strange season, so it's going to be a lot harder to predict, I feel like, this year, the outcomes of a lot of these games. But anyways, Casey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. I mean, it's echo everything you said. I'd love to be back here on the stream and for the fourth straight year. It's crazy even saying that because it does not feel that long, but here we are, man, through everything. And interesting playoff year, like you said. It's very unpredictable, especially with only one team in each conference getting a first round bye, and that's been that way for a little bit, but still is makes for like they say, a super wild card round. And very excited though for the weather getting cold and the playoffs starting. That's the best time of the year, like you said. And I'm psyched to talk about it and keep this tradition going. So for you, you obviously, I feel like me and you are kind of in different positions. You have the Chiefs, which for them was a down year. For most teams would be a good year making the playoffs and winning the division. But I feel like for you guys, it was, just time and time again, drama and, the receivers not being consistent and having to rely too much on Kelsey. And so I kind of want to hear your thoughts first, just like your take on the Chiefs season as a whole and like heading into now the playoffs against a very, very good Miami team. Granted, they did lose, but like, what's your reaction? What's your kind of mindset here?
Well, this is the worst season I feel like under the Mahomes era, it's
Eh,
not bad because we still made the playoffs. We still won 11 games, and here I am saying it was the worst season in the Mahomes era. But it's totally true because we had a lot of frustrating games, win or lose, and 4 games alone that were quite literally in the hands of receivers, whether it was Marquez Valdez-Scantling or Kadarius Toney, or hell, even Travis Kelsey against the Eagles having a crucial fumble. So there's been a lot of adversity for the Patrick Mahomes led Chiefs. It's been arguably one of the worst, most dysfunctional offenses in the league. And the only reason that they have gotten themselves into the positions that they have gotten themselves into is because of Patrick Mahomes. And if you log on Twitter and see some 13-year-olds talking about how Mahomes is having a terrible year, they don't know ball. So it's been just a weird year, and who knows what'll happen in the playoffs? We're just gonna have to wait and see. So you get the luxury this year, Casey, of having the 1 seed, which is a lot more coveted than it has been in past years because, well, in past years, it's you get a 1 seed or a 2 seed, they both mean the same shit. You get the bye. This year and the last year and maybe even the year before that, it's just the 1 seed. Just the 1 seed. That's it. You have to be on your heels every week. You have to play phenomenally. You have to put yourself above the rest to get in that position. And so, as the Chiefs fans, ever since Mahomes came in town, we have high standards. I understand that. Um, so, like, we could sit here and whine about how we're having a terrible year, but we're still an 11-win team, and we have a playoff
right.
spot. We're hosting a first round playoff game. That's really not. If you're any other team, you look at that and you're like, yeah, it's a pretty successful season. But if you've watched every single game this year, the way that every Chiefs fan has, like, there has been so much frustration, win or lose. So, I mean, how are you feeling this week? I'm sure you're relaxed, you know, sipping on a pina colada
Yeah.
and lounging at the poolside, like just see everybody else duke it out for the first week. Why don't you?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, we've known we're the number one seed for a few weeks now. It's, today, yeah, we did lose today, but it was Sam Darnold, shout out
Meaningless
USC
game.
legend.
Yes.
Meaningless game, didn't matter. We could have won. We fumbled in the last drive. But besides that, I'm feeling pretty confident. I mean, I think the thing that most football fans, not just 49er fans, but most football fans are asking have been asking for over a year now, is when is Brock Purdy gonna come back to earth? When is he gonna? When is he was the last pick in the draft for a reason. He was not supposed to be good. Sorry about that. He was not supposed to be good. He was, jeez,
You
not
all right
supposed to be
there?
good. He was supposed to be. Yeah, sorry, my roommate was texting me. He was not supposed to be good. He, it was the last pick in the draft, for a reason. He, when the question everyone is asking is when is he gonna suck, right? When is he gonna fold under pressure? And we saw against the Ravens, he played terrible, right? He was forcing balls. He was, and that's the best team in the NFL, the Ravens. And so yes, I'm feeling confident, especially in the wake of the NFC. We see Philly is collapsing. Philly, I think Philly's gonna maybe will lose in the wild card round. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose to Tampa Bay in the wild card round. I honestly, that game's in Tampa. The Eagles are terrible. They remind me of last year's Vikings. Like, great start to the season, and what happened? They fell apart. Then you have teams like the Lions who are good but inexperienced, and the same could be said about some other like the Packers too. Packers are inexperienced. You have a rookie QB, or not a rookie QB, but his first year as a primary starter. And then there's Dallas, who the 49ers already defeated by a lot of points, and the Rams, who the 49ers defeated when the game actually counted. So in the NFC, we're sitting pretty. But then you look at the whole NFL as a whole, and historically, any given Sunday, right? Any team can win. That's just the deal. Any team can win in the playoffs any given Sunday,
100%.
and that's why the NFL is the greatest league in the world, because it's a one game, it's a one off. You never know what's going to happen. It's going to come down to the wire, and I'm not going to say the 49ers are just going to easily go to the Super Bowl, even if it appears that way. But I mean, we're one injury away from sucking, and we got to stay healthy. McCaffrey's very injury prone, so I'm excited, but I'm not by any means am I confident, like as much as I maybe would want to be.
Yeah, no, I understand. And just to let you know, your camera is hella lagging. You might want to turn that on and off real quick. But yeah, no, to your point, I understand the Brock Purdy thing. As an outsider looking in, I have kind of rode that train of, well, how good is Brock Purdy? He has this complete team around him. He's got a fantastic defense, a phenomenal offensive core. How much has he really had to produce to get wins at the quarterback position? I mean, obviously he's an upgrade from Jimmy Garoppolo because he couldn't get that done with the same kind of core around him, and Purdy has been able to get it done. So Purdy's had some good games, some good moments. Like you said, he played horribly against the Ravens, and you just hope he kind of gets that out of his system, and that's kind of a learning curve going into the playoffs. But it's an interesting team. As far as the NFC side of the bracket goes, the 49ers are by far the most complete team, at least on paper, and so I think a lot of people are just going to flat out predict that they're going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl this year, including myself. But we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, and it all starts next week. Not next week, but 2 weeks from now in the divisional round for you guys. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the Chiefs for a second because I mean I do agree. Like it's such a must be so disappointing for you and the millions of Chiefs fans. It's like you have a guy like Mahomes who is so talented. It's like the opposite of Purdy, right? Mahomes, we know Mahomes is good. We know he's going to be good year in year out. It's a matter of if his team is going to support him, right? Purdy, it's like we don't know how good Purdy really is. It's his team is supporting him. That's the question.
It's true.
So I think with Mahomes, it's like you got to feel for the guy, especially like you said when the game's on the line and Darius Tony is lining up over the line of scrimmage and stuff like that. But the thing that the Chiefs have that other teams don't is that I feel like every year, at least every year that we've done this stream, every year I go in and think, the Chiefs are fantastic because every year we've done the stream, except for the year the Rams went to the Super Bowl, the Chiefs have gone. So granted, only 2 times, but
Right.
still, that's 2/3 of it. And every year I go in doubting the Chiefs and saying, they maybe they're not the 1 seed, but they find a way to get it done. And it's like they weren't supposed to beat Buffalo, they weren't supposed to beat Cincinnati that year,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh, yeah.
you it just like I feel like they're like the Patriots. It's like they would always find a way to win. So I I feel like for the Ravens, it's like I would not. I while I do see the 49ers as like maybe the lock. Maybe I'll go as far as saying is the lock for the NFC. I feel like the Ravens and Chiefs, if they do end up playing in say an AFC Championship game or division or however that would work out in the bracket, yeah, it would be however that would work out. I think probably the championship. I honestly think like the Chiefs could get that done. And I mean, you're a fan of the team, you know more about it, but I just feel like any given Sunday, the Chiefs are in the playoffs are like impossible to beat.
And that's
And
the strange
yeah,
thing about it, because
yeah,
you're right. Like there are years where it looks like you can count them out. They're struggling to put up points offensively. Their defense is bending but not breaking, kind of thing. So like, can they put? And then they get to the playoffs, and it's just like a whole different machine. And you can't explain why the hell that is. But I really think, and I'm going to talk about this more when we actually get to the preview of the Dolphins Chiefs game in a minute here, but it's the Chiefs are. It's gotten to the point where I can sit here and talk about how terrible our offense is and how I have no hope for them come playoff games. But
right.
I've had the exact same thoughts in 2021. We were struggling to win games against bad teams. Even last year, we won the Super Bowl last year, but one of the last weeks of the regular season, we're taking a terrible Houston team to overtime and barely winning. It's like it's such a bipolar team, and you think but you really don't at the end of the day, especially with the Chiefs. I've just kind of learned to like have my opinions, but not be surprised if those opinions turn out to be entirely wrong. And I watch every snap, every second of every game, and I think I know the team, but then it gets to the playoffs, and then it's a different team. So it's like I'm really just indifferent. Like I'm trying to come up with how will the Chiefs do in the playoffs this year? Are they going to show up and play like how they've played all regular season, which is an underperforming team with terrible receivers who can't get it done? Or are they going to show up and just beat teams and surprise everybody? I have no clue at this point. I really don't.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I mean, I think too, like, I think more so in a sport like baseball, but I think football too, it's like, how are you doing when you get to the playoffs? Like, you see, I mean, there's teams in the playoffs right now, just to shout one out, the Eagles, right? The Eagles practically clinched the playoffs probably mid-season. We're like one of the last undefeated teams. They were up there as the great teams, and it's like now the Cardinals a few weeks ago, they played terrible against the Giants today, and I don't see them going very far. And it kind of goes to show, that they don't, they probably won't matter when it comes to like who they play in the playoffs when when it's all said and done. So I think looking at the Chiefs, I mean I know we'll talk about it in a sec here, but like the Chiefs Dolphins, yes, they're a great team, but they regressed. I feel like a lot over the course of the season. And I feel like, I mean, not to spoil my take too much, but I think Tua is sort of fading. I don't know. I just feel like he's not really living up to what he was as an MVP candidate in the first few weeks of the season. So it's just so interesting how the momentum is like
Yeah.
a huge factor right now.
And I think a majority
Yeah.
of the teams in this league this year, we haven't really seen this in very many years, at least recently. I think a lot of teams kind of fall in the same kind of tier of talent where any team, you could round up about 10 AFC teams, and any one of them can beat any one of them on any day. Like, it's really weird. You take the Bills, for example. They were 6-6, and then they won the division tonight in the last week. The Bills are a team, and when was the last time you saw this? The Bills were a team who, going into the last week of the season, today, depending on the outcome of 2 games, could have either gotten the 2 seed or missed the playoffs entirely. They got the 2 seed, but it was on the table
Yeah,
for them to
no,
entirely miss the playoffs. When was the last time we've seen this, where all these teams are so bunched up into one tier of talent together that any team can really just go anywhere and just nobody knows.
I don't know if we've ever seen that, at least in this extended playoff format. I don't think we ever have. And I mean, it might be indicative of the AFC just being not very strong, but I think at the same time, it's like you have teams in the AFC, like I mean, the Texans, the Browns, like to name a few, are like so scrappy. Those teams
Very
like
much.
fought their way to get there, and much more than maybe a team that kind of had it already on a silver platter for them, like the Ravens. You know, just kind of like breezing through the schedule. So, oh yeah, I mean that's a crazy stat. I don't think that's probably ever happened before, at least in this modern era.
Yeah, I can't recall a time ever seeing that. But without further ado, let's just start talking about the first game. We'll go in chronological order here. Let's talk about the first game that we're going to see in the playoffs. It's going to be Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's the Browns and the Texans, like we were just talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, like, said it already. Both teams extremely scrappy. Did not predict either of them to make it to the playoffs at all preseason. But I'm just gonna come out and say I think I got the Browns winning this one. They were coming off. I mean, they did lose today in a meaningless game to the Bengals, but they were coming off a 4-game winning streak. They've been so good with Joe Flacco. I just feel like his miracle run cannot come to an end in the wild card game, especially against the Texans. I know they're on the road. I don't think that should matter. I feel like having a road game in Houston is probably much easier than having a
Yeah.
road game in say Kansas City or Green Bay. But I do think the Texans are a very good team. I've loved what CJ Stroud has been able to do. I just think his lack of weapons is probably what's going to be the downfall. They don't have Tank Dell. I feel like if they had him, I would be a little bit more confident in this Houston team. I just think this Texans team is going to run out of gas. They almost lost. They really did not deserve to win against the Colts. They lost because Goodson dropped that pass, and
Mm-hmm.
who knows what happens if he catches that, gets the first down. They're in the red zone at that point, and so yeah, I think they are deserving, but they're also in a pretty bad division. The AFC North is the best division in football. Every team in that division finished above 500. I know that this Cleveland team has changed a lot over the course of the season. They've been through, what, 3 quarterbacks? But they beat the Ravens. They're a team that is very, very talented on both sides of the ball. Probably a contender, at least the best defense in the AFC, I would say, maybe besides Baltimore. And their offense wasn't supposed to be this good, but Joe Flacco has looked like he's returned to 2012 form. So yeah, I got the Cleveland Browns winning this one. Give me it by like 10 points. Let's go like
It's bold.
24-14.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like it, and I don't think many people expected Joe Flacco to come in and just ball, but low key he's been balling. And
yeah,
when they had their last game against the Jets this past weekend, he's whooping the Jets' ass. They pan to him on the sidelines, and he's trying not to fall asleep because of how bored he is, beating up on the Jets so badly. And that's a dangerous team. That's a look of a man who doesn't care at all who he goes up against. That's a look of a man who's just ready to go out there and handle business. And so I think the Browns
right.
are going to be a very, very scrappy team in the playoffs. Like they could definitely pull off some upsets. And I think if the Ravens have to get upset by somebody, I think the Browns would be the team to do it. They're a very scrappy team. You don't know what you just really don't know because you look at them. They have a backup quarterback in, and they're calling Joe Flacco off the couch, and they're winning. They're still
Yeah,
winning, and they're looking good winning. And so the Texans have had a really cool story for this season. Rookie quarterback CJ Stroud, give him a lot of credit. He's looked fantastic. He looks like the real deal, at least in my eyes. And I believe it's first year head coach, first year general manager as well. So this is a team that's you could make an argument is in a rebuilding phase, and they win the division with a first year rookie quarterback. And so it's a
yeah,
very cool story for the Texans. It really is, and they get to go into and they don't go to Cleveland, goes into Houston to play the Texans, and so I I'm with you. I think Cleveland's going to win. I think this storyline of the Texans is going to come to an end. But it was a cool little season for the Texans, and it's a definitely a it's it's a stepping stone in that franchise for the many years to come. So
Yeah.
this is a positive. It's a positive season for the Texans, but unfortunately, I think the road ends here for them.
Yeah, I completely forgot these two teams played on on Christmas Eve, and it was in Houston, so just like how the wild card game will be, and the Browns won by 2 touchdowns, but C.J. Stroud wasn't playing.
Correct.
It
Yeah.
was Davis Mills. So also for the Browns, I mean, Joe Flacco had nearly 400 yards in that game. He did throw 2 interceptions, but I mean, I honestly, Amari Cooper 265 yards. Are you kidding me? Like that's crazy. And so I feel like they lit up that Texans defense, and I don't know. I feel like for the Texans, it's like the problem is like you said, they're kind of in a rebuilding stage. And it's like they don't really have any weapons. It's like C.J. Stroud is kind of just carrying the team on his back. I'd love to see
Oh
them
yeah.
upset, but I don't know. I guess it wouldn't be an upset by seeding, but I would love to see them shock both of us
Right.
and win. I just don't think they're there yet. I think they draft a guy who's capable in that offense of elevating them. Then sure, but yeah, I think Flacco is going to keep this going.
I'd give them more of a chance to win if they had Tank Dell in, but they're playing
Yeah,
with guys you're not too familiar with. So I mean, C.J. Stroud's been a phenomenal rookie, and he's definitely brought this team here to the point that they're at. But I think it ends next weekend, and the Browns move on. I do want to mention though that last not to you know be about myself here, but I did have a perfect bracket last year in the playoffs, predicted every game perfectly. It's going to be a lot more of a challenge this year because I feel like a lot of games last year, for the most part, were very predictable. And this year it could really just go anyway. I think a lot of these games could go anyway. But yeah, Browns Texans, both of us taking the Cleveland, and we move on to the second game of Saturday, the last game of Saturday, and that's right, it's my Chiefs versus the Miami Dolphins.
that's a tough one because like I want
Oh
to
yeah.
like I want to pick the Dolphins because I feel like I feel like we could both agree they've had a better season. At least in the way like they're more complete, right? I mean, you look at their offense, and it's the best receiver in football, but you're going into Arrowhead. You're not playing very good as of late. You allowed 56 points to the Ravens last week. Barely beat the Cowboys. You're coming off a few good games, but I don't know. I just think this is probably the hardest one for us to predict. I feel like. I mean, maybe not for you because you're a Chiefs fan,
Yeah.
but I feel like you're going into Arrowhead. Tua had a horrible night tonight. 2 interceptions. I mean, I didn't really watch much of that game, but I know Tua choked that game, and it was a lot on the line too. It was felt like a playoff game, and the Dolphins gave up nearly 400 Josh Allen yards. So I don't know. And on the ground too, he was their leading rusher. So I don't know. I just feel like it's really hard to put a finger on it, but I do want to say I'm going to go back to it. I want to say that the Dolphins, in my mind, are a little bit more complete, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Because I know the Chiefs, like you said, it's just been a struggle with those receivers just not connecting with Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna pick the Dolphins,
Okay.
but like by 3, like 30 to
That's very
27.
fair. Yeah. I think this will
Yeah,
be one of those games where it's very close to the very end. It could be very low scoring too. The Chiefs have a phenomenal defense. And we saw that in the Germany game this year. The Chiefs and Dolphins played each other. The Chiefs were up 21-0, I believe, and then at halftime, and then the Dolphins put up 14 more. One of those drives was absolutely gift wrapped. I believe it was a fumble from Patrick Mahomes, and they were already in the red zone. So, like, it was one of those games where the defense just absolutely showed out for the Chiefs and won it alone against the Dolphins, and that was one of those games. And I'm like, well, do we beat them again? Do we get that same luck again? Tyreek Hill had that
yeah,
strip fumble, and it was returned lateral, freaking all the way down to the end zone for the 7 points, and it was just, are we gonna get that lucky again? But then I look at stats, of course, and the Dolphins only beat one team above 500 this year, and it was the Cowboys 2 weeks ago. And on top of that, the Dolphins last year only beat a team above 500, I believe, once, and it was in week 3. So since week
Wow.
3 of last season, the Dolphins have only beaten an above 500 team twice. So that's really where I'm like, do we trust them to win a playoff game? Because they're going and they didn't kill the Cowboys, the only team they beat, the only 500 plus team they beat this year. They won by 2 points. They snuck out that game with the win, and so that's another factor to look at. Another thing you look at is weather, and I know this sounds silly, but did you know the Dolphins have a terrible record in recent years when the weather is below 40 degrees? I know that's an ESPN ass stat, but they play terrible when the weather is cold. And right now, the weather is forecasted. I know it's far out and unpredictable. As of right now, the weather in Kansas City next Saturday is forecasted to be around 0 degrees at kickoff. And so if they struggle at like 35 degrees, dude, welcome to Arrowhead at 0 degrees. And so I think those two factors alone, I think it's really gonna hurt the Dolphins, and I think they're gonna struggle heavily. That being said, I think the Chiefs are winning this game, and I've been very critical of the Chiefs all year because they deserve it. They've barely beaten bad teams. They shoot themselves in the foot every single week. They kill themselves every single week, and they give away games that they should win. And it's usually just receivers not running the right way or dropping balls, and they're fumbling balls, and it gets repetitive to the point where you just expect it to happen every week. And I'm like, well, is that going to happen in the playoffs, or are they just going to turn into prime form again out of nowhere, and nobody knows why the hell they did that? Because if you look at the Chiefs roster, compare this year to last year, we have a better defense this year than we had last year when we won the Super Bowl. We have arguably a better O-line than we did last year when we won the Super Bowl. What was different about the receiver core? We had Juju Smith-Schuster, and now he's gone, and he got replaced with Rashee Rice, a rookie who you can make an argument is better than Juju Smith-Schuster. So our current receivers were the receivers last year when we won the Super Bowl. Make that make sense. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's been awful this year, was the MVP in my eyes for the AFC Championship game last year. Some crucial catches, including a touchdown that led the Chiefs to victory over the Bengals. And then you had Kadarius Toney with a heroic punt return down to like the 15-10 yard line that set the Chiefs up for the game-winning touchdown or field goal or whatever. And these are guys who have been terrible this year. So you're telling me these guys who have sucked all year contributed to the Chiefs winning the goddamn Super Bowl last year. The only difference between this year's offense and last year's was that we replaced Juju with a better player, Rashee Rice, the rookie. So what's going to happen, I have no clue. But I'm taking the Chiefs because I think the Chiefs are just different in the playoffs. I really do. I think we're going to be a little surprised by how we look in comparison to how we've looked in the regular season. But by that, yeah. But just to finish that, like I don't think it's gonna be like an impressive showing per se. Like I think they'll score a little bit more than they usually do, but I don't think it's gonna be like, oh, Chiefs put up 35 points. You know, I think our max is probably around 20. So I think this is one of those games where we'll win like 20-14 or 20-19 or something like that.
Yeah, no, I think you brought up some good points there, and I didn't know about that weather thing. I mean, it's definitely interesting, too, because in that Germany game, right, like Tyreek Hill, who, is this supposed MVP candidate, Offensive Player of the Year, not doubting that. I mean, I don't think he's going to win MVP, but I think he is up there. But he was really not utilized all that much in that game. He had like 60 yards, and that could have been a result of Tua just not being the quarterback he's been advertised as, but I feel like both offenses in that game, head to head, were not very good. Maybe to the level that they wanted to be, but I think about Tyreek Hill because that weather thing you brought up. If anybody is used to it on the Dolphins, it's Tyreek. He played his whole career, with the exception of this year and last year, in Kansas City. So I think if that actually I mean, you called an ESPN stat. I agree, but maybe it is legit, and that team just struggles in the cold. But I think of course, if anybody is used to Arrowhead weather, it's Tyreek, and if anybody's used to not just the weather, but the atmosphere and sort of the aura of playing in Arrowhead, it's Tyreek. And so I think that's the complete X factor. If Tyreek only has 50 yards and no touchdowns, I think it's going to be very one-sided game. And you saw that, like, you were at the Germany game, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they full first half, he barely made an impact. He had a few catches, but their best player from scrimmage was Raheem Mostert in that game, and he's not even their main running back. So I don't think that the Dolphins offense without those guys can really do much. I still have them winning, but I just think it's entirely dependent on Tyreek and Tua. If Tua's throwing picks, I mean, it's over, especially to a very good Chiefs defense. So, but yeah, I agree with you. Sure. But I think the
Yeah.
Dolphins will win.
Yeah, a lot of people were mad that the NFL did the Chiefs Dolphins game in Germany because it gypped the Tyreek return to Arrowhead. Well, it looks like we're getting it anyway, which is fine. I would much rather have the. I mean, if it were up to me, I would have taken the Steelers. Obviously, come to Arrowhead, a team that struggled to beat the Ravens practice squad this weekend. But um, yeah, I mean, the Dolphins are one of those teams where I'm not overly intimidated by them. But the Chiefs are they're one of those teams where offensively they show signs of flashes here and there, and you're like, well, can it come together in the playoffs? Let's just take a look at last week. Last week the Chiefs played the Bengals, and they had an opening drive touchdown, and they didn't score a single touchdown after that. You go back to the Germany game with against the Dolphins. They opened the game with the football. They march down the field with ease, and they get the touchdown, and then just fizzle out and struggle to score the rest of the game. So it's a team that is capable of scoring. They just again shoot themselves in the foot. They fizzle out, but they show those signs of flashes. I will say, among Chiefs fans, it's pretty popular belief that Rashee Rice is our best receiver this year, and I think most people agree. And he's a rookie, and I've been a little critical of Rashee Rice because, well, yeah, he's one of the leaders of receiving yards this year in the NFL, if you could believe that. But I watch these games every week, and the majority of these passes he's getting are screens, and then he's just running
Right.
5-10 yards every time he gets a screen. So he's getting a lot of yards after catch, and that's where he's getting all these receiving yards. So it's like, yeah, he's got all these yards, but he's getting screens, which tells me that he's not smart enough with the system yet to be able to run routes and create separation and get open. Well, against the Bengals last week, he started to do that. He started to run routes. He started to create separation. He was catching overhead passes with ease, and he looked like an actual good, competent NFL receiver. And that's something we have not seen from him at all this year, at least in my eyes, until we played the Bengals last week. So that is a really encouraging thing for me to see. And obviously, he didn't play today because meaningless game, locked in the 3 seed. They benched him, they rested him. But last week against the Bengals, that was a really encouraging thing to see. Was him actually
Yeah.
evolving as a receiver. So I think like the more I think about it, the more like I think the Chiefs are gonna win this game.
Yeah, we'll certainly see. I mean, I think it's like, yeah, can the Chiefs play the short game, especially like you said, Rashid Rice kind of thriving off those shorter passes for sure. But no, I think it'll be a good one. I mean, it's like
Oh
two
yeah.
teams. It's like started out really good, maybe regressed a little bit, but I think two teams for sure. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if either one of these teams came out of the AFC. Granted, Ravens are very good, but I think it's if you have that any Sunday mentality, then I think both these teams, in my eyes, are still contenders, even if they're in the
Yeah.
wild card. I just think it's a tough year to kind of be a fringe team, a fringe, whether you're inside or out. So I agree.
All right, moving on to the third game of the playoff. The first game of Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, is Steelers at Bills.
Yeah, this is one game I for sure see going one way. I don't really see a way where the Steelers can win. I don't think they're. You brought it up just a minute ago. Barely beat the backups of the Ravens, and I mean, for all I'm concerned, the Steelers team, like, kind of it's funny, the AFC North, it's like pretty much every team in that division except for the Ravens was pretty good when it came to record. But every team in that division also was playing with a backup quarterback, except for the Ravens. Um, that's what I meant to say. Like, you have Mason
Yeah,
Rudolph for the Steelers, Flacco, and Browning, right?
yeah,
And I feel like Rudolph has really not been. I mean, he's been all right, but he's kind of thriving with just like these individual weapons on his team. I feel like the Steelers' offense has some really good pieces. Najee Harris, George Pickens, like you have some good Deontay Johnson, like you have some very good weapons. But I feel like you look at their schedule. Yes, they beat Seattle, a team that missed the playoffs. They beat the Bengals with a backup QB as well, but they lost 5 games in a row after their defeat after they beat the Packers. They lost to, excuse me, after they beat they lost to the Browns, and then no, they won a game against the Bengals, but then they lost to the Patriots. I mean, it's just some of these losses are like ridiculous in my opinion. I just don't see like I thought they were going to be out of the playoffs. I didn't think they were going to make it. Lost really badly to Indianapolis. I think it's going to be a blowout. Honestly, I think it's going to be like 3 touchdowns maybe.
yeah.
Like and especially like Buffalo, it's like triumphant journey that they had to get to the playoffs. It's like they're not going to go down without a fight, especially to Pittsburgh of all teams. Like they fought so hard. Like you said, everything was on the line, literally everything against the Dolphins, and they found a way to win it. And they're going to be at home. I'd say besides Arrowhead, Buffalo is probably one of the hardest, toughest places from a weather and an atmosphere standpoint to win a playoff football game as an away team. And so I have them winning by 2 or 3 touchdowns at a minimum.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm with you. And from a business and revenue perspective, adding that extra seventh seed to the playoff format wasn't a bad idea for the NFL. But a seventh seed hasn't won a playoff game yet. And this is year 3, I believe, of it. And so, look, we got 2 teams that are the seventh seeds this year, and if we're being brutally honest, they don't deserve to be in the playoffs at all. So I'm with you. I think the Bills are going to easily take care of the Steelers. The Steelers are a team that are dysfunctional, in my opinion. They struggle, and they're going to be completely helpless without TJ Watt, who went out today. So I don't see a way they win this. I really don't. I got Buffalo all day, and it's a cute little season you had Steelers, but you just pack it up. You might as well just concede now. There's no way you're winning this one.
I agree, and not much I can really add. I think it's just like, it'd be funny, but yeah, like you said, it's like this expanded thing. It's like it basically guarantees like a first round. I mean, it's not a first round bye because you're still playing the football game. But it's like these teams are just not in the same tier
Yeah,
as these,
they're
you know,
not.
deserving teams. A whole different level of football, like just a disparity. And so, yeah, I don't see Pittsburgh really. I mean, I thought they were eliminated for really all but eliminated a few weeks ago, and
Yeah, I
somehow
did as
found a way
well.
to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's. I mean, yeah, they're not a very good team. I'm with you on that for sure.
And then we go to the 4:30 time slot, the game after this one. You have the other 7 seed team, the Green Bay Packers, against the Cowboys. And this, to me, is the absolute. I think this is more of a lock than the Steelers Bills game is. This is another one of those teams where I'm like, really? The Packers? Like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. They beat the Chiefs. Cool. I don't care. But they're not a good team. Like, they're just not. And they just don't deserve to be in the playoffs, if I'm being brutally honest. And so I think the Cowboys are just going to wipe the floor on this one.
100%. Like, the NFC has looked so stacked this year, and then you pan over the bracket, and it's like the Packers. Like,
Yeah, like,
I think
where'd they come
unarguably,
from? Yeah.
like I thought they were eliminated a few weeks ago as well, but it's like, they have been just such a weird team all season. Jordan Love kind of getting his first crack at being a starter, and no knock on the guy. I mean, he's a good player. I don't doubt that, but I mean, barely beat the Bears this week, barely beat the Panthers 2 weeks ago. It's like
Yeah.
come on, like they lost to the Giants on prime time. It's like there's so many games that just like yes, I know they beat your Chiefs, and you brought that up. It's like, every bad team is going to have a few fluke wins, and
Yeah,
they
of
did beat the
course.
Rams too. I mean, they beat the Rams look like one of the best teams in the NFC, and they beat them as well. But I mean, they have some really bad losses this year, and I mean, I just think they're one of those teams. It's like, have some good players, but like you look at their stats, and it's like, okay, Jordan Love is like probably their only like functional player. Jaden Reed had a good game today, but I don't think it's replicable. I got the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys are just like, an absolute juggernaut. And I hate to say that, as a 49ers guy, because the Dallas Cowboys have been playing top tier football these past basically half of the season. The second half, I feel like the Cowboys have been just elite, and it's really hard to stop a team like that. And so I don't know. I feel like for Dak Prescott as well, there's a lot to prove, and I just feel like they're just going to go in there and rout them. I think it's going to be like I said with the
Yeah.
other game, 3 touchdowns probably.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys and the Bills locker rooms are looking at their matchup and treating it really as a bye week. Like, obviously, from a
Right.
business standpoint, they're gonna do their usual like film days and practices and prepare hard because it's playoffs. You can't take any team in the playoffs lightly. But I think everybody on those two squads deep down knows like we're gonna win this game. And so,
Right.
anyways, moving on. Those were the two easiest picks by far. But moving on, we have the Rams, who we were just talking about, against the Lions. And this one's really interesting because you have Matt Stafford versus Jared Goff, two quarterbacks that were traded for each other, and now they're both playing against their former teams. So, who gets the revenge here? Does Jared Goff get the revenge? Does Matt Stafford get the revenge? Who knows?
Yeah, like similar to the Chiefs Dolphins game, I feel like this is one of those games that I could see going either way.
Oh, yeah.
Weather won't be a factor. They're playing in a dome. Another thing I feel like is interesting about this matchup is you have like two very like-minded, like very intelligent coaches, right? You have Sean McVay and Dan Campbell, like two guys that really just turn these teams on a full 180 as soon as they got there. I mean, Dan Campbell did have a 1-win season with the Lions, but I think he still has just been one of the biggest reasons for this team's success. But besides that, I mean, I really think the Lions are a great team, but it's kind of like how we were talking about. Like, when is the Cinderella story gonna end? When is the pumpkin? Or when is the carriage gonna turn back into a pumpkin? Right?
Yeah.
It's like I know the Lions have been good all season. I don't doubt that. But at the same time, it's like they've had some like really close games that have just kind of made me feel a little iffy, right? I mean, we can pretend that they beat the Cowboys with that blown call, but only beat the Vikings by 6 the week before that. They lost to the Bears. I mean, they've had some really bad games this year, and
Yeah.
people they lost 38-6 to the Ravens. People kind of brush that under the rug. I feel like. As for the Rams have been playing honestly like a Super Bowl contending team in the
They've
second
been the
half of the season.
hottest
The
team. They're
record
one of the hottest teams the last few weeks, for sure.
Right. The record might not show that, but they started out really slow. And they're also in one of the, I wouldn't say division, but they're in a harder division. You have the 49ers, who they did beat today in a meaningless game, and the
Mm-hmm.
Seahawks, who are a fringe playoff team, and then the Cardinals, who are just god awful, but somehow find ways to win games sometimes. So I don't know. I love the storyline. I love the fact that Goff and Stafford are squaring off, especially that huge blockbuster trade. And one is the Super Bowl champion, one is the Super Bowl loser. In both of their careers, and it's just there's so many storylines to be made.
Yeah.
I think offensively, it's like I think the Rams are better with Nakua, Cup,
Mm-hmm.
Kyron
Oh,
Williams.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Honestly, I don't think I think it's honestly close though because you have the Detroit side, Amon St. Brown, you have Laporta. I don't know if I mean, I know he did get hurt today. I assume he'll be back though. You have Laporta, St. Brown, Gibbs. They have a very good
Yeah.
um lineup as well, and it's scary. And Jared Goff too. I want to say the Rams are just going to go in there and upset them. The Rams are on a tear right now. The Lions have impressed me this year. But I just feel like it's like they're not quite there yet. Like they've had just some games that have said like, you're a good team. You got a great coach. You got a very good quarterback, a very good receiving core, especially with Laporta, a Pro Bowler in his first year. But I think the Rams, like Puka Nakua, Cooper Cup, Kyron Williams, like that tandem, I feel like they're not just going to go down in the first round. And I feel like playoff game in Detroit is going to be electric. It's the first time ever at Ford Field. It's the first time they've ever won the NFC North. But I don't know. I do think the Rams are going to win it. I just feel like LA has more experience. Matthew Stafford is a Super Bowl winning QB. Give me
Yeah.
the Rams by a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean it's not like a far fetched pick. It's not. I think as far as this
Yeah.
slate of games goes, the whole first wild card round, this is the hardest one for me to predict. It really is because the Rams and the Lions are both so similar in their own ways. Like they both got fantastic head coaches. I'm a huge Sean McVay fan. I'm a huge Dan Campbell fan. Their offenses are insane, especially the Rams. You have Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and sensational rookie Puka Nakua, and like Kyron Williams are running back. It's a loaded offense, and I feel like they should be scoring more. And they score a lot, but then other weeks they kind of just go flat, I guess. But they do score a lot of points here and there. They killed the Browns, like you said a few weeks ago. They took the Ravens to overtime, lost, but still took the Ravens to overtime, and then they
On a
go
punt
turn
return,
around.
too.
Yeah, and then they go and turn around, and they beat the Saints and the Commanders both by one score. They beat the Giants by 1 point, and it's like, well, who is this team really? Because they can go head to head with some of the best in the league, but then they also kind of struggle against poorer teams. And I think the same can be said for the Lions. And ever since the Lions beat the Chiefs in Week 1, the first game of the regular season this year, everybody's been riding the Lions bandwagon. Everyone has. And I understand it. It's an exciting time to be a Lions fan. This is the best season you've had literally since the 1990s. It's been a long time since you had a season this complete. However, I've thought that all year the Lions have been massively overrated. They're not bad. They're just not great, Like, they're good. Do I see them as a Super Bowl caliber team? Hell no, I don't. You know? And so,
Yeah.
give me the Rams. I want the Rams too. Now, one point can be said for Jared Goff treating this kind of as like a revenge game because he was kind of the one who got traded over. The Rams didn't believe in him, especially after he lost that Super Bowl. Only got the team to 3 points that Super Bowl against the Patriots. And I think a lot of people just like, Jared Goff, he's just not that good. And then he goes to Detroit and proves that he's got talent. Nobody's putting him in the elite category, but he's a talented guy. And so, but you can't just show me the side by side offensive rosters and tell me that the Lions are better. I think the Rams have the more talented, more complete, most well rounded roster between these two teams. So I give me the Rams.
Yeah, and I think too, like, if our predictions are right, like it'll be sad because, like you said, like right now is literally the greatest time since Barry Sanders to be a Lions fan. And
Yeah.
look, if the 49ers get out, I'll be and the Lions are somehow still in. I'll be rooting for him. I grew up 10 minutes from Berkeley Memorial, where Jared Goff went to college. Been a huge fan of him. Amon-Ra St. Brown went to USC. I go to USC. Like, I like their players. I love their coach, but like you said, it's like, you know, they've been good all year. But when you're in an NFC this stacked, even if you're including the Eagles in that conversation, it's just they don't look like that complete. And it's like I think next year, like they have, now that they're a premier team in the NFC, they'll have like tons of chances to add to their D line, add to their secondary. And they already have Aiden Hutchinson, who's looking really legit, and their offense has plenty of weapons, and I'm sure they could add to that. But I just don't think they're quite there yet. And I love the narratives we're talking about. And I think Jared Goff for sure has a chip on his shoulder. But I mean, you're going into Detroit. Stafford played in Detroit for like 7, 8 years, 9 years. I don't even know. He played close to a decade in Detroit. He knows how it is there. Not that that necessarily matters, but I think the Rams have a slight edge. And the Rams even gave the 49ers some hell when they played them in the game that mattered way back in earlier in the season. So I think the Rams are a little more complete. And, it would suck for the Lions fans, but I think one will be their year, just not yet, really.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions are definitely a team that has potential in future years. Like, this is a good stepping stone for them. It really is, and I think they have the potential to be a damn good team in the coming years. But I just don't think this year it's not their time yet. It's just not. And so
Right.
I think the Rams are one of the hottest teams in my opinion in football. They've been really good down the final stretch of the year, and I think it's a team that can shock some people. And it's a team that has potential, in my opinion, to even make a deep playoff run. I'm talking like NFC Championship game. I really think this Ram team is talented enough to make it to that stage. So I think we're both taking the Rams. I think that's an upset. I haven't looked at the money lines yet, but I think that's an upset. And so let's move on to this last game here. And this is another one of those games where on paper it shouldn't be close, but just as a football fan watching these two teams every week, you really don't know at all. It's the Eagles and the Bucks.
I mean, these two teams played, granted, way back in week 3, right? And the Eagles did win by 2 touchdowns, but this is a completely different Eagles. I mean, it's the same Eagles team, but I feel like the mindset of the team and the momentum is completely different. I mean, the Eagles, I feel like this year are sort of the Cowboys years, where it's like, this is our year, this is our year. We play so good to start the year, and then what happens? They get cocky and they lose. I mean, the Eagles have been stone cold since considered, the top team to start the year. They got bested by the Giants. Well, technically now it's yesterday in the Pacific time zone, but lost 27-10, lost 35-31 to the Arizona Cardinals, a team that's tanking, and barely beat the Giants the week before that. Lost to this non-playoff Seahawks week before that. I can go on. Lost to the Cowboys. Got destroyed to the 49ers. And that
Yeah.
49ers loss tipped their season. They beat the Bills. Got hella lucky in that game because there's tons of luck in that game. Dumb penalty calls. Josh Allen got horse collared. Didn't throw the flag. Whatever. They win the game. That was their best win of the year. It beat Tampa early on in the season. It was fine. Just a simple win for them, but really not that impressive of a game. Jalen Hurts threw 2 interceptions to Tampa in that game. I wouldn't be surprised if he throws 3 in the wild card game, honestly. Baker Mayfield, say what you want to say about him. He's taken a team to the playoffs now. This is the second time he's done that in his career, I believe. He took the Browns to the playoffs in
Yeah.
2020.
He
He has
did.
experience. Jalen Hurts has experience too. That whole team, of course, has experience. I don't know if A.J. Brown will be healthy. I assume he will. I don't think his injury was super major, but I honestly think that we could have an upset here. I mean, technically, I think the game is in Tampa, but
It
I don't
is.
know, man. I think it is in Tampa based on the seeding, but I think if you ask any football fan, I think the Eagles winning is probably the favorite. But honestly, I want to go with an upset and say Tampa's going to win. I can't
I
pick a
like it.
team that loses to the Giants. I just can't. My morals cannot pick a team that loses to the Giants in a game that still technically matters to
I
them.
mean,
And losing to the
yeah.
Cardinals last week.
Their showing
Yeah.
today was so abysmal that they conceded at halftime. They had their starters play until halftime when they were down 25-0. They conceded the game. That's crazy. The division on the line. I've never seen a team go in with a division on the line, and they played so bad that they just conceded at halftime. That's what the Eagles did today. And you go on about the games they've had. They lost to the Seahawks. They got killed by the Cowboys. They lost to the freaking Cardinals. They got lucky against the Bills. You forgot to mention the week before that, they got so lucky against the Chiefs from Marquez Valdez-Scantling dropping a walk-off touchdown pass that any competent receiver in the league would catch. And then it goes on and on. They beat the Commanders by 7 points. They hold out the Dolphins. So what? They lose to the Jets. Man, the Jets. The second
God.
Commanders game this year went to overtime. And so this is a team that I don't trust one damn bit. I don't trust them one damn bit. They look so dysfunctional, and they look like a team that just is not built for the playoffs. I mean, yeah, they've got a decent record. What was their record? Like 9-1, 8-1. They started off so good, and then the last 6-7 weeks they've just crumbled. They've crumbled harder than the fucking Roman Empire. They've been terrible, and so. But then you look at the Bucks. This is a team that if they were in any other division would have missed the playoffs by about 3 games, and they're not that impressive either. But they're frisky. And those are dangerous teams. But I'm sorry. With a playoff spot, a division championship on the line, you can't score a single fucking touchdown against the worst team in the league? A 2-win Panthers team? You win 9-0? Okay, cool. So your defense played well, but how well did they play when you consider it was the Panthers that you played? And I get it, right? It's divisional rival. Their games are always a lot closer than they should be, no matter how good one team is versus how bad the other is. If they're in the same division, it's going to be close more often than not. So you just got to prepare for that. But, it's a team that they've been hot and they've been cold. They started off the season pretty hot. They start off the season with a win against the Vikings. Then they beat the Bears by 2 scores. Then they lose to the Eagles, but then they kill the Saints. And then, they play some games where they look like a competent team. They lost to the Texans 39-37, but the point remains they put up 37 points. So it's an offense that when they want to be good, they can be good. They have that potential. They've shown flashes. They've shown signs of being good. If you remember the Bills game, when they played the Bills, if Chris Godwin knew how to turn around and catch a football, he could have caught that Hail Mary and upset the Bills too. And so this is a team where both these teams are hot and cold. I think the Bucs are more hot and cold, but I think the Eagles are more dysfunctional. And so it's really one of those things. How do the Bucs look going into the playoffs? Well, 2 weeks ago, they beat the Jaguars 30-12. That looks good, right? That looks good on paper. Jaguars were a playoff team last year. They're not this year, though. So how good of a win is that? You beat the Jaguars. And then, last week, they lost to the Saints in a game where they should have won at home. And then they go into Carolina with, like I said, division spot on the line, division title on the line, playoff spot on the line. They put up 3 field goals. No offensive touchdowns. That's it. 9-0 win. So the Bucs, they're a team that could very well pick it up next week and upset the Eagles, but on paper, I have to take the Eagles. I don't want to, but I have to.
I completely get that take. I think it's one of those that goes either way. Let's not forget, we both didn't bring this up. The loss to the Giants today by 17 points was not to Danny Jones. It was not to Tommy Cutlets. It was to Tyrod Taylor. They let Tyrod Taylor put 300 yards on their defense, and I believe a touchdown as well. And Saquon Barkley didn't even have that great of a game on the ground. He had about 50 yards, about 2 yards a carry. They're playing, I don't know. I think it's really just like we hit it on the head. The Eagles are playing terrible. Can they turn it around in the playoffs? I don't know, but I want to bring one thing up. I think the X factor for Tampa Bay is Baker Mayfield, because we saw in the 2020 season, I'm sure we talked about this game, 3 years ago now, the 2020 season and in the 2021 wild card, where, the only time Baker Mayfield's really been in the playoffs as a starting QB was against one of the great team, a very similar team to this year's Eagles. Remember the Steelers of 2020? They started out 8-0, I believe, and completely fell apart.
I want to say it was 11-0 actually. I think it was a ridiculous.
It was 11.
Yeah,
right, because they lost the Washington football team. Baker Mayfield went into that game and put up close to 50 points on the Steelers. Could he do the same thing? And yes, that Browns team was good. That was a very good Browns team, but they weren't a Super Bowl contending team heading into that playoffs. They were a fringe wild card team. Didn't win the division or anything, right? So I don't know. Can Baker do the same thing with a fringe team, a team that maybe isn't completely deserving to be there if they were in a different division? That for me is the X factor. If Baker can return to that 2020, 2021 form where he goes into a playoff game calm, confident, willing to put everything on the line for a playoff victory, and yes, I think the Bucs can win. At the same time, you bring up a good point. This Eagles team is experienced. This Eagles team is playing a very shaky Buccaneers team. I mean, they're gritty team. They put a lot on the line, and they started out really slow. I mean, they lost badly to another team we were just talking about, the Lions, 20-6, and lost to division rival Saints last week. So I don't know, man. I think it's just inconsistency for the Bucks that really just holds me back from being like, oh yeah, they're 100% going to win. But yeah, I could see them doing it. I just think it's like it's Baker Mayfield. Is he going to bake? Or is he going to burn it? I don't know.
He's, I mean, you don't know what you're going to get from him. I can see this game going either way. I can see Baker Mayfield showing up and playing like garbage, and I can see him showing up and just shocking the world by beating the Eagles. I could see this game going
Right.
either way. But on paper and first, I really don't think the Eagles, after coming off of an NFC title last year, are just going to fizzle out in the first round against a 9-win team. I just don't think that's going to happen. But both teams have been very inconsistent, to say the least, and it really could go either way. It'll be exciting. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a huge, huge edge by having a home game as well. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Hmm. Yeah, and I feel like too, like obviously completely different team. I'm not going to draw comparisons, but the 2022 Bucks, um, excuse me, the 2021, the year after they won the Super Bowl, the 2021 Bucks did not win the Super Bowl, but had a very good playoff run with Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were not looked as, and yes, I'm not going to compare it because Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield are on completely opposite sides of the spectrum, but you know, similar teams, and it's like when they have a home playoff game, nobody knows what's going to happen. And I feel like you're a Tampa native yourself. You know
Yeah.
what those games are like, and I'm sure you know those crowds are pretty good, especially you know now it's like they've been kind of a bad team for most of their history,
Mm-hmm.
and they won 4 NFC South divisions in a row, I believe now. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think it could go either way. I'm gonna go with the upset because I feel like you know, most of my picks were not, but I don't know. I just feel like this Eagles team, it's like can't lose to Tyrod Taylor, man.
Yeah.
In the year 2024.
Yeah.
I don't know.
100%. Yeah, no, I like you said, being a Tampa native, like I always want the Bucks to do good. That stretch where they had Tom Brady, obviously I rooted against them because I've suffered the consequences of Tom Brady's Hall of Fame career as a Chiefs fan for a long time, and so when he went to Tampa, I was like, dude, I can't root for Brady, not because I have anything against him personally, just on the field, he always beats me, and I hate it, and whatever. So I had, it sucked for me having to root against my hometown team, like whenever he was there. So I'm proud of. I really am proud of Baker Mayfield for showing out and kind of keeping that Bucks streak alive in replacement of Tom Brady. Like he did a good job. He really did. I think a lot of Bucks fans are going to be completely fine with moving on from him after this year, but we can't deny that. He did what he was asked to do. Go win a division. Go make a playoff spot. You don't have to. We're not asking you to win the Super Bowl. We're just asking you to be competitive and keep Tampa on the map. And he did that really well. And for that, as a Tampa native, I'm proud of Baker Mayfield for accomplishing that. And I want the Bucks to succeed. I really don't. I really do. As long as they don't play the Chiefs. So. I'll 100% be rooting for
Understandable.
Tampa. I'll 100% be rooting for Tampa. Not just because I hate the Eagles, but because I live here, and so they've always kind of had a nice cut. Yeah, no, but I've always kind of rooted for the Bucks as long as they're not playing for the Chiefs. So, yeah, I hope they win, but I got the Eagles winning.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know. Tampa's like a team I never really. I like honestly all three of your city's teams. Like I don't really think I've ever had anything against them. Like even when back when the Oakland A's were a thing, and the Rays beat the A's in the playoffs. It's like
Yeah,
all your teams are just like kind of fun to root for. Like it's like you never know how good they're
yeah. I
gonna
mean,
be.
undercut, like it's
It's
a
like
low key city, like not it's Tampa's not one of those cities you think about very often, and so like I'm kind of a fan of like a smaller cities. You know what I mean? Like I can
yeah,
get behind Tampa, I can get behind Green Bay, I can get behind Charlotte, or like just smaller cities with smaller
yeah,
markets, and the teams that I hate are the freaking big cities, Los Angeles and New York and Chicago. Those are the teams I'm like, dude, let's get some fun. Let's get some fun markets in here.
yeah. I mean, you could say San Francisco, but the 49ers play in San Jose, so it's like No, it's
Well, and
like
the
a good 50
49ers
miles.
are shadowed by bigger cities in your own state, like Los Angeles. So it's like
Yeah,
I think of California. I think of California. I think of the Los Angeles, not San
yeah.
Francisco. So
Uh,
yeah.
As a current LA native, I mean, I think well, it's funny because the last time we did one of these streams, it's like I was living in NorCal full time. Now I go to school in LA, and it's like the funny part about that is LA is dominant pop culture, college sports, but and baseball and basketball maybe, even hockey in California, but
Yeah.
NFL football. Like I never see Rams or fans.
I found the button. Okay, yeah.
It's fun, dude. It's
Keep
fun.
going.
I never see Rams or Chargers fans. Like, and nobody really cares about them, and
They
it's
don't
like,
exist. In San Diego and St. Louis,
yeah,
yeah, but no, they don't exist.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
Anyways, yeah, no, that's a good point though. Like, it'll be cool to see if Tampa Bay can beat a team like Philly, who I think we can both agree, maybe besides Dallas, has the most annoying fans. Sorry if there's any Philly fans watching this, but
I'm not
I don't know.
sorry.
Philly fans, yeah,
Yeah.
especially in that Niners game, what happened with the green law and the guy Big Dom on the sidelines. That was weird, but
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. We'll see what happens though. Definitely a crazy slate coming up though, and I'll be
Oh yeah,
I'll be
it'll be
excited.
fun.
We'll make.
I said it'll be fun, but yeah, I really hope we can get together every week and make more of these because it's been tradition at this point. We've done it every year. I don't recall. I don't think we did every round last year because we just kind of got caught up in our real life shit. But every year we've at least made an effort to do one round, and so it's a tradition, and I'm very very much wanting to keep it alive for as long as we possibly can. So hopefully I see you next week. And if I don't, that's fine. I'll just go without you. It's okay. But it's
Make it work.
no, it's been an honor doing this with you, man. Since fuck,
Likewise.
what was I like 18 when I started this, which would have made you what like 15 something crazy 16. I don't know, man, but we've been doing it for a while.
15. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I've enjoyed the ride. I hope we can keep it going, and I hope we can get together next week too. So. With that being said, man, thank you everybody for chiming in and watching this video as it's uploaded, and hope to see you next week as well. So appreciate the support. We'll catch you then. Casey, any last remarks, man?
Subscribe to both of us and
Hell yeah.
echo everything Brett said. Love doing it, and it's been a ride. If you've been with us since year one and you're still here, thank you. We appreciate it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'll catch you next week, guys. Peace out.